Students, welcome to the next lecture on location live in Brussels. I'm here with a good old long-standing friend, Philip Todd, who works for the European Commission. I already mentioned him in one of the lectures. So Phil, welcome. Nice that you're here. Nice that you want to answer some of our questions. Now, Phil, we gave the students the briefing last week about the Cross-Border Health Directive, how the Commission is looking into it. The students received a briefing to be like a patient group and to do a stakeholder analysis, make an advocacy campaign and everything. And I wanted to go straight to the source. You work, you have a career in the European Commission. And so I wanted to explain to students a little bit of how they could best go about this. So are you ready to answer some questions to them and to me?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Right.
That is very nice. So the first question is, now they're facing to actually map stakeholders, but they haven't done this before. Now we gave them a lot of information already in the briefing. It's EURORDIS, the European Association for Rare Diseases, for example. And I told them, spread it in buckets, you know. Look at what are your main categories, what are regulators, what are patient organizations, hospitals, whatever you can find. But what would be maybe the top 3 tips or top 5 tips for a good stakeholder mapping? Where do you start if you're a student and you don't know so well how to go about it?
Well, I would say that it's always good to try and think of it as a mind map. So you put your client, in this case the patient group, at the center of the diagram, and then you think about who are all the stakeholders around that who influence your client and have an impact on them. So, for example, you mentioned the category of institutions. Obviously, if your client is in rare diseases and health, you will have certain institutional stakeholders who work on health. For example, the European Parliament. You have the Environment and Health Committee of the European Parliament. So that is going to be a key stakeholder group. So you might want to put the Health Committee of the European Parliament as one of your stakeholders. And then within that, you would have a number of key actors, you know, the committee chair, the so-called rapporteur, or the MEP who's leading on the drafting of the legislation would be a key person within that committee, and then each of the political groups has
Yes.
a spokesperson for that issue who is appointed to follow that issue. So you need to identify those people and then put them in your mind map. And then you would have the council. The council will have a working party which will look at the issue in detail, and each member state, each permanent representation has a health attaché who represents their country in that working party. And the member state will send probably from their capital an expert from the health ministry who will work on that file. So you need to identify who those people are for each member state, because those people are going to be your key interlocutors. You're going to want to talk to them to find out their views, and you're going to want to feed into them your views, so that you know what they think, and you find out what they're discussing in the working party, which is behind closed doors, and then you can influence them with your position papers. So that's 2 examples on the institutional side. But then you need to also think about press, for example. Who are the key health correspondents in the member states, or who are the key EU correspondents in Brussels who might be writing about this issue, so that you could brief them when the file is coming up for decision in the council. If there's going to be a common position of the council, if there's a vote in the parliament, maybe they're going to write about this issue, and you want to talk to those journalists to give them your views and to try to get your position reflected. So that's on the press side. And then you'll have other stakeholders as well from the health field, you know, doctors' associations, hospitals, with competing interests to yours. Sometimes your interests will align, but sometimes your interests will differ. And so you need to monitor what they are saying about the issue, because you might want to create coalitions with them, to ally with them when you can, but you also want to know what your opponents are saying so that you can counter that and be aware of other views that might be conflicting with yours and that might be trying to influence the debate.
Wow, that is a lot of tips. I think there's a lot of good stuff in there, guys, that you can use. Which brings me then to my second question, or actually it's my third one, but I put it as number 2. It's about the European Commission is at the moment looking at the directive on cross-border health. You were once the spokesperson on this directive, if I understood that correctly from you. Now, what can the students do with that process of evaluation? How can they maybe harness that and really work that into their own work? What can they learn from the process? Because it's going to be like 3 years, maybe before the law is changed. It's going to take maybe 10 years. And like I said last week in class as well, by that time, a lot of people with a rare disease may already have died. But so this revision process, is there anything they can learn from that right now that they can use in their project?
Of course, because at some point, if not already, the contributions to this evaluation from other stakeholders and external studies, academics, and so on will be published. And so that information is a treasure trove of information that you can use to understand the issue better. And as I said before, to map out what other voices in the debate are saying, because you want to, as I said before, you want to know who your allies are potentially to maybe form a coalition, but also who your opponents are, so that you can try to preempt their arguments and counteract their arguments in the discussion. Because there are always going to be competing interests, all trying to get the attention of the key MEPs and the key member states, and trying to influence the debate and the Commission. Shouldn't forget the Commission as well, of course, because the Commission is an honest broker in this discussion, but is the one that often tables the amendments. So you never want to forget the Commission, because they are sitting in the Council working groups and in the Parliament, and they always will be asked for their expert opinion on these amendments. So you are trying to amend perhaps the proposal when it comes to that, and you need to influence the Commission as well. So I would say use the information which is published online and contribute to the evaluation yourselves as a stakeholder group. I mean, in this case, the rare diseases group. You want to share information about what works and what doesn't work, and then you want to read what others are saying so that you can tailor your arguments better.
No, that's an excellent tip. And one thing, in addition to that, for the Commission, that's a question I have. I saw on the website of the Commission and the evaluation that already a lot of people have submitted depositions and stuff. So that part of the process is kind of closed off officially. Now, of course, we're kind of role-playing the student project. What in the timeline of, let's say, the next 2 years could they then still contribute? Would there still be a moment where you would say, well, the evaluation is ongoing? Can they still talk with somebody at this moment in the procedure?
Of course, you can talk to, first of all, the Commission, because the Commission is still at the information gathering phase. So they want to hear from all of the stakeholders, and they want to understand the issue in depth. And to be able, because they will have to, this evaluation will lead to an impact assessment. So they first have to figure out what is wrong with the current setup, or what works and what doesn't work, what the economic efficiencies or inefficiencies are, who the winners and losers are, what is not working with the current framework, before they can then consider identify the main problems and then options to address those. So you will want to feed into the Commission your analysis of what the problems are, and then try to influence them into putting the problems of rare diseases at the top of the priorities when they come to amending this directive. So you'll want to talk to the Commission, but you also want to talk to the other key influencers. MEPs are always a useful multiplier, because they participate in meetings in the Parliament, in events, they speak into the press, so they are always a good third-party endorser. If you can find MEPs who become your friendly allies and supporters, maybe MEPs who have a family member who has suffered a rare disease, or you know through your member associations are sympathetic to your cause, they can be your spokespeople without explicitly saying so, and that is obviously an ideal situation. So you'd want to find those friendly MEPs who could make your case already at this stage. And similarly for member states, there will be member states that will be sympathetic to your cause, and that you need to try to use those as your sort of spokespeople, basically.
That's amazing. I mean, that's really excellent, because I think the member states are often forgotten in these type of projects, and that is, I think, where a lot of gold is lying there for you to harvest. Last question before we come to the end of this little mini lecture, and that would be about the messaging. Students are, of course, not yet used to develop messaging. They're going to use like a kind of build a house, different messaging for different stakeholders. But how do you start building your own messaging in such a sort of fictitious situation where you're kind of role-playing the rare disease patient group?
Well, I think first of all, you need to imagine that you have to first understand the issue and understand what are the key concerns and the key problems, and then what are the key asks that you have as a patient group. So if you're rare diseases, you need to understand the problem of rare diseases and have some key facts. Facts and figures are always important in messaging because you want to explain the size of the problem and make people understand that it is a problem and something they should be concerned about. So you need some good data or comparisons to show, you know, how big a problem this is. So look for the data in the information that you have to show the size of the problem. Look for some surprising facts, some shocking statistics or information that can make people have an emotional reaction. Because if people feel an emotional reaction, wow, that's really shocking, then they may be more likely to retain it and it's more likely to influence their thinking. You need to adapt your messages to your audience. So for the commission, you're going to want to be more technical and go into the details because they understand the issues better. But if you're talking to a member of the European Parliament, you really need to stay at the headline issues and really keep it short and simple because they won't have a lot of time and they won't retain a lot of the technical details. They just want to understand what is the political interest for them to support your cause and what can they get out of it. To be a bit cynical, can they get media attention out of it? Could they position themselves by tabling amendments? That is what MEPs are looking for ultimately. Of course, they may also have an interest in genuine, you know, interest in the issue and want to help, but they also want to get media attention or just profile in the committee. So you need to help them to get that visibility. So you need to give them sound bites and information that they can use in a committee intervention or in a press statement so that they can multiply your messages. So you need to tailor your messages to your audience, keep it short and simple, have think about some background information that you might provide but which is not, you know, speaking points. So differentiate between key messages for speaking points and background information, which is essential to understand. And then maybe think also about some defensives. What are the questions, the difficult questions that the people you are briefing might face, and how you would answer those difficult questions.
Wow, I think, guys, this is an excellent summary of what your whole project is about. And if you analyze this little mini lecture a little bit, I think you'll find all the points that we're going to discuss tomorrow. Thanks for being here at the lecture on location. Thanks very much, Phil. I really super appreciate this. So,
my pleasure.
Okay.
Good luck with the project.
Thanks. Take care. See you tomorrow, guys. Bye.